Anger. We've all felt it. Sometimes it's like a flash flood that just rushes over you. And other times, it's more of a slow burn, you know? We're always told to control it, get rid of it, suppress it. But what if we've been reading it all wrong? Today, we're going to decode this powerful emotion not as the villain of the story, but as the story itself. A story with a really important message. So let's open the book. You know, believe it or not, that quote is from over 2,000 years ago. The philosopher Aristotle was suggesting that anger isn't inherently bad. It's actually a tool. And just like any tool, its value really depends on how you use it and why. This whole idea totally challenges that simple good versus evil story we so often tell ourselves about our own feelings. So let's just lean into that idea for a second. What if anger isn't the problem? What if it's a signal that's pointing to the problem? Kind of like an emotional alarm system, trying to tell you that, hey, a boundary's been crossed, or one of your values has been threatened, or maybe that a story you tell yourself is being challenged. Okay, so to understand the message, we've got to understand the language it's speaking first. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is the story of anger? Well, this is how psychologists define it. And honestly, the key word here is perceived. The thing that's setting you off doesn't have to be some real physical threat. Nope. It can be a threat to your ideas, your status, your sense of what's fair. It's a response to your interpretation of what's happening. And while your mind is interpreting, your body is telling its own immediate story. The second anger is triggered, your system is just flooded with stress hormones. Your heart starts pounding, your blood pressure shoots up. This is that ancient, primal fight or flight response kicking in, getting you ready to face down a threat. It's a physical story of being on high alert. Now, a story isn't just about the plot, right? It's got characters. And when it comes to anger, we often end up playing one of a few pretty distinct roles in how we express it. We become the main characters in our own emotional drama. So we can kind of see three classic archetypes here. First, there's passive anger. This is the character who avoids direct conflict. We're talking the silent treatment, maybe blaming themselves for everything. Then you've got aggressive anger. This is the antagonist, lashing out with threats or blaming other people. But there's a third character, and this one's the hero of the story, assertive anger. This is the protagonist who uses the energy from that anger constructively, stating what's wrong, setting boundaries, and really aiming to solve the problem, not just win the fight. All right, so we know what anger is and the characters it creates. But what about the plot? What actually triggers this whole story? Well, a lot of the time, the reason on the surface isn't the real story at all. The actual plot is usually running much, much deeper. Let's think about a super common scenario. A coworker gets that promotion you really wanted, and you feel this flash of anger. But why? I mean, they didn't actually do anything to you. The answer lies in one of the most powerful story generators we have in our minds: social comparison. See, social comparison is just how we measure ourselves against other people. When we do what's called upward comparison, looking at someone who seems to be doing better than us, it can either be inspiring or, let's be honest, it can make us feel kind of inferior and envious. And that feeling of being less than, it's a huge trigger for anger. It's not really about their success, it's about what their success seems to say about us in that moment. And this connects perfectly to something called the self-threat model. We all have a story we tell ourselves about who we are, our positive self-concept. When something happens, like that colleague getting promoted, and it threatens that story, we feel it like it's a personal attack. So anger becomes a defense mechanism. It's a way to protect our ego, to protect the story we tell about ourselves. The anger is literally a shield for our story. But what happens when the big plot twist comes from inside our own heads? Sometimes the story of anger isn't about some external threat at all. It's about an internal conflict, like a little civil war between two of our own beliefs. This is the story of cognitive dissonance. So let's say you see yourself as a fundamentally honest person, but then you lie to a friend. Now you got these two ideas that just don't fit together. I am an honest person and I just lied. That contradiction creates this really intense mental discomfort. The frustration or anger you might feel in that moment is actually the pressure to resolve this plot hole in your self-story, usually by justifying the lie or trying to downplay it. So if anger is a story with characters and a plot and all these twists, that means we don't have to just be passive readers, right? We can actually become the authors. Let's talk about how we can start taking control of that narrative. Becoming the author doesn't mean you stop feeling angry. Not at all. It means you get to choose what happens in the next chapter. So instead of letting the story just default to aggression or withdrawal, you can choose a constructive path. You can use that surge of energy to understand the problem better, communicate clearly, and focus on a solution, not on winning. This is really about transforming that raw energy of anger into something purposeful. This brings us to a really powerful idea: intentional restoring. The concept here is that we can consciously choose to reinterpret the events that trigger us. We can literally change the narrative in our heads from "this is a personal attack" to "this is a misunderstanding," or from "I'm a failure" to "this is a learning opportunity." It's an active, deliberate choice you get to make. So the ultimate takeaway here is this: anger is not the final word. It's not a verdict on who you are or what the world is. It's a prompt. It's like a flashing cursor on a blank page, signaling that the current story just isn't working, and it's giving you the chance to write something new. So the next time you feel that heat rising, just pause and ask yourself this one question. Is it a story about a boundary being crossed, a threat to the story of who you are, an internal conflict? Listen really closely, because understanding the story is the absolute first step to writing a better ending.